Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm your host, Jennifer Boozer, owner and founder of CannaBama in downtown Mobile. We're located at 558 St. Francis Street. Our phone number is 251-255-5155. You can find us at CannaBama.com and on social media, on all the social pages under Sweet Home CannaBama. We hope that you follow the page. And we're here every Monday night at 7 p.m. Central on FM Talk 106.5 locally on the Gulf Coast and streaming right here on the Sweet Home CannaBama pages every week, as well as a lot of our organization pages that we're involved with that want to help make sure that this education and information gets out. So we appreciate the National Industrial Hemp Coalition, the Georgia Hemp Coalition, the Alabama Hemp Coalition, and everybody else that's watching. The Alabama Cannabis Coalition has been such a great help to us with getting some really poignant new guests and getting us some great information. So I want to give a shout out, especially to Marty this week, to say thank you to the Alabama Cannabis Coalition for your contribution to making sure that Sweet Home CannaBama is a bigger and better show at teaching and making awareness for the patients and the citizens in Alabama who are waiting for our medical program to open up, and as well as represent the hemp industry nationwide. And that's what we came here to do tonight. I had a whole show planned, and we are gonna do it. But we've got some breaking news, and it hit like an avalanche. I'm still getting the details. Thank you to my friend John Grady from Missouri, who sent me a message at about, I don't know, 25, 30 minutes ago. And but apparently the governor of California and the governor of Tennessee are now coming out with their own executive orders banning these so-called intoxicating hemp products. These are THC products made from hemp that are federally legal. The same thing that has been happening in Missouri. Now, Missouri, we thought we had won that first battle because the Secretary of State in Missouri basically twice said this is not going to happen, this isn't okay. And now there's a big press conference scheduled tomorrow. I believe it's at 11:30. The governor of Missouri has called a press conference and invited some of his friends, apparently, to explain how he will enforce his executive order that the Secretary of State, again, has said is not constitutional. These are breaking situations. I don't have any more details than that. If you are listening and you do have those articles and that information and you want to throw it in the comments on the live stream and tag Sweet Home CannaBama so that our radio listeners can go to the pages and see these pieces of information. This seems like the domino effect I've continuously keep talking about, just like with Boro Hemp here in Alabama. If we allow the state to bully her into bankruptcy and she can no longer fight a battle she's already won, then we've got to do something. We can't keep sitting on our hands. I talk to these guys in other states. They have these great groups of people, especially Missouri. I've been a privilege to be a part of their group since this happened, and they have taught me so much about what Alabama is lacking. And what a lot of people in other states in hemp are lacking is the cohesiveness of coming together and saying what's good for me is good for you. We cannot sit on our hands. We cannot ignore this anymore. Get off your tail. Put your money or your radio show or your influence or whatever you got out there, whatever you have to give. You know, this show isn't free for me. When I offer up this service to other people to get messages out there, it's not free for me. It costs me several $100s a week. But it's important enough to CannaBama, to me personally, to the people that I work with in the hemp industry who have very little to get the word out. And this is the only FM talk show about cannabis that we've been able to find in the country. And we're 5 years old. If that doesn't say what my commitment is to this industry, you can tabulate $350 a month times 5 years. So whatever you have, I don't have any money to give, but I have that, and that's what I'm willing to give. And hopefully that will be enough, and it will be enough to inspire other people. But you've got to get up. You've got to do something. And if you're a consumer, you can no longer sit on the sideline. I'm sorry for being so passionate and harsh about this, but I'm sick and tired of coming here every week and begging for scraps while I go spend the rest of my time fighting for you. We need you to fight for us. We brought this medicine, this new information, this new way of life to this country, and we're suffering, and people with financial interests and power interests are trying to stamp that out. And I don't care who you are. I don't care if your store makes $2,000 a month or $200,000 a month. You ought to at least be sending in letters and emails and rallying and showing up if you don't have the money. Like I said, I don't have any money to throw in. I got my own problems, but I have to throw in something to this fight, and that's what I'm doing with the show. And whatever you have to give, you have to give it. And if we lose, at least we tried. How can that be satisfactory if we lose because nobody would work together? It's ridiculous. So anyway, yeah, so if you've got that information, I'd appreciate it if you drop it in here for us, because some of us are going to still be here. We're going to still fight, and we need to know how to do that. I don't even have any information for you. That's how fresh this is. I know you can go to the Missouri Hemp Trade Association website. I'm not sure who to contact in California specifically, but I know the National Industrial Hemp Coalition page is streaming this right now. So if you are in California, let us know how can we help you. And hey, we could sure use your help here with Boro Hemp as well. We're still in need as well. Same situation, different member of the government doing it, but it's the same situation. And it's time we got some help here in Alabama too. Tonight, our show, we want to start. September is National Addiction Recovery Month, and this is a very important topic to me. Most of you know I'm staring down the barrel of 10 years clean. Next month, I will be 10 years clean, which is as long as I used, and I'm very, very proud of that, and nobody's going to take that from me. It's on Halloween, which really stinks. It's just the day I happen to run out of pills and never pick them back up. So I didn't plan that really well as far as celebrating, but I'm going to do something to celebrate. I don't care if anybody else cares, because I'm proud of myself. And the reason that National Addiction Recovery Month is so important to me is because now I can use my story and others around me to show people that cannabis isn't what you think it is. It is not a gateway drug. It is not something that's going to lead you down a dark path. And it is something that can be used to help in spite of that reputation as a gateway drug. So my own story started 20 years ago when I fell into addiction while I was grieving the death of my son. And I spent 10 years down that dark, deep hole, and I wanted to die. And then I got clean, and God delivered me from that. And then I found CBD, and it changed my life, my quality of life. And then it saved my life and gave me something, a career. I started at 40. And so I want to make sure that we honor this every week this month, because we do recover. And tonight, my guest is a friend and a colleague. Her name is Bronwen Scarberry from Ohio. She's one of my co-authors on Courage in Cannabis Volume 2. And welcome to the show, Bronwen.
Hello, thank you for having me, and thank you for being so passionate and doing what you do. You are very appreciated.
Well, thank you for being kind enough to let me cram that breaking news in. I know we had a whole plan, and we're going to get it done. But thank you for allowing me to get that out. I didn't plan on getting that spicy with it, but I just went with what the Holy Spirit was telling me to say.
As spicy is as spicy does.
There you go. So tell us, we know that you're one of the authors from Courage in Cannabis Volume 2, which, by the way, is available on Amazon and at CannaBama. And but tell us a little recap of who you are.
Okay, so my name is Bronwen. I live in Ohio. I'm a medical patient here in the state of Ohio. I got my license in 2020, or my card in 2020. And I'm a disenfranchised educator and an author in the Courage in Cannabis series. I'm a wife, dog mom.
Yeah, yes, the dog mom. I know you're very particular about that dog mom stuff too. I love the pictures that you post with your ruined sunflowers.
Well, it's the deer. The deer eat them.
That's funny. Well, then your dog isn't doing its job, is it?
Right. No. Well, he's 13.
Right. Well, I want to recap just before we go to commercial. You actually lost your teaching license because it was discovered that you were a medical patient, and you actually lost your job as an educator and your teaching certificate. Is that correct?
Correct. I had my license suspended for 4 years. I I accidentally took cannabis into the school, which I know is bad, and there should have been some type of punishment. But so yeah, I lost my license, and I could get it back, but it's going to be darn near impossible. So
all right. Well, when we come back from the break, we're going to pick up right there with Bronwen and talk about some addiction recovery with cannabis. Stay with us. Welcome back, everybody. Tonight we are honoring National Recovery Month, where we talk about addiction recovery. I am almost 10 years clean from an opiate addiction, and the subject of addiction recovery is very, very close to my heart, especially because we can now use cannabis as a tool to help people to detox and also help them stay clean by helping balance their mental health and reducing withdrawal symptoms. There's lots of ways that the plant can be used to get people away from the true drugs, heroin, meth. We see even antipsychotics sometimes. Alcohol is the worst thing you can put in your body. And we can use the plant to help people beat these strongholds and these chains of addiction. And I know them all too well. My friend Bronwen, who I'm talking to tonight, she knows those bonds very well too. Bronwen, let's go back and talk about your addiction. What was your drug of choice?
My drug of choice was alcohol, specifically vodka, and Klonopins. The death
wow.
cocktail. Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite a cocktail.
Yeah.
Both those things are very highly addictive. Both of those things on their own would make you a crippled addict and require intervention.
Right. So
how did you start? I mean, take us back.
Okay, so I always knew that alcoholism ran in my family. I was never going to be a drinker. I stayed away from alcohol. I didn't like the taste of it. Hands-free. I always consumed cannabis. It was always part of my life. And then the man I was with had a son, didn't want cannabis around him. And he was like, why don't you just have a few drinks? And I'm not blaming my alcoholism on him. That's
of course not.
me.
Of course not. Everybody has an origin story. somebody offered you something at some point.
Yeah. So then I go to a friend's house. I had cotton mouth. She was like, "Do you want a drink?" I said, "Yes." She hands me this elixir of vodka and Diet Coke that just hit the spot. And
Right.
it was kind of
Ugh.
game on. And I know it
Yeah.
sounds horrendous. I don't
It
like Diet
sounds
Coke.
horrible.
It was cherry
Yeah.
vodka.
Even
Yummy.
worse.
Right? I mean, it sounds
Yeah.
horrific.
Well,
It
I
is
mean,
horrific.
we've all had Boone's Hill
Yeah.
Strawberry Farm in high school. Okay, let's be honest here. We got to be honest. We've
But
all had really bad alcohol.
the Klonopins came before the alcohol.
Oh, wow.
I was in college. I was trying to cope without the cannabis. So
Right.
I'm in college. I was 25 when I went to school because of circumstances. I come from a very high trauma background. I've been on my own since I was 16, stuff like that. So I couldn't go to college until I was 25. I go to school. I start having panic attacks.
Yeah.
I had no idea what they were. I go to the doctor. I go to my
Sounds like
lady
probably
doctor.
adjusting to somewhat of a normal kind of everyday lifestyle outside of, a lot of trauma.
Yeah. But I mean,
You know,
nobody
like we
counseled
don't
me.
always know we don't always know what to do when things get a little better. And sometimes
Right.
that pressure can be crippling. And it
Right.
always eventually goes back to a psychological aspect that we can't cope with. And something that's destructive is just waiting for us to pick it up in order to cope instead of actually being taught to cope.
Right. So I go to the lady doctor with this because that's the doctor appointment I had. So I was like, "Hey, this is happening. Like I'm like feeling like I'm having a heart attack, leaving classrooms. What's going on?" And he was like, "Here's some Klonopin."
Wow. Just straight to the really hard stuff.
Yeah. Well,
I've
this was
I've
also
experienced that before, though. They went straight for the strongest thing they could give you and didn't even try anything less, I mean, give me a
right.
break.
So this was like in 2000.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So the Klonopins came first, then the drinking came. I had no idea I was on such a deadly and addictive combination. And
Right.
it spiraled fast and quick.
As it
And
does.
I was a blackout drinker.
It's so dangerous. Ooh.
Yeah, I mostly drank at home. That was how I did most of my drinking. My husband never knew who he was coming home to, which version of
Right.
me, happy drunk, stripper drunk,
Right.
crying drunk, angry drunk. He never knew. So it was an adventure. I got to the point where I just hated myself. I hated everything about me. I had access to guns. I'd had them in my mouth more than once.
Wow.
And I apologize if that triggers someone.
No, I actually I never did anything like that, but I was right up to that limit. I was getting close to that point.
Yeah, so I was calling, like I was staying up late, drinking, calling the like addiction hotline centers.
Yeah. Just to have somebody to talk to about it.
Yeah.
Right. To talk you out of it. Yeah, no, I remember asking my ex-husband, "Do you want me to kill myself?" Because I needed him to say, "No, we need you."
Right.
Or give me permission.
Right. And I was
He
convinced.
chose not to answer me, which is his own answer. But
Right.
anyway, that was one of those things. You're crying out for help. Please tell me I'm worth saving. And yeah.
Yeah. And I was terrified to tell him because he kept trying to get me sober, but he knew the decision had to come from me.
Right.
He knew it was an inside job. He tried to force it down my throat once. It didn't work. But the seed was planted. Yeah.
I think for me, when I was given an ultimatum, I think for me, I know you don't have children, and I did, and they are literally the only reason that I didn't die, either by accident or my own choice. they were the only thing that I could think of that was worth being alive for.
Right.
And I can't imagine being in a, obviously your relationship was toxic, whether it was because of you or because of him, it wasn't good. And I can imagine that extra level of loneliness, and it's so understandable why you said you would call suicide hotlines and overdose hotlines, because that's just, I had no one left, I felt, but I
Yeah.
knew that
So
my kids were too little to make the choice and I wasn't going to make it for them.
yeah. And I mean, I have friends who have recently lost that battle. So if you're listening and you're fighting, 988 is a great number. Sorry to plug them, but
No, no, plug away,
it is
please.
a
That's
crisis
why we're
line.
doing this.
Yeah, it's a crisis line. It's available. They can talk you through it. 988 for
Okay,
anyone.
thank you for that. Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. Because I think anybody who's even flirted with an addiction understands that the depth of that darkness that you come to, but it's almost like you have to come to it.
Yeah.
Because I know for me, I couldn't imagine a future, so I didn't want one.
Yeah.
And until I could see a future again, I had no hope,
And
you know?
throughout my drinking, one of the things that really spiraled my drinking even further was finding out that my husband and I would never have children together. And I always
Right,
wanted to be a mom.
right.
It really, what is my
And yes,
purpose? Women are
mhm,
supposed to be mothers. That's what they do.
yes,
It's what you do. And I didn't.
right. Right, and
So,
for my trigger was that I had a son and then he died, and
yeah.
so it's a very similar, because at that point, we didn't know if we would ever have any other children, and we did.
Hmm.
We had one more child, but that was, I was 25 years old. What am I supposed to do? Everybody around me is having babies.
Right.
It's being a woman. There's some things that come with being a woman they don't tell you about, whether you become a mother or not. There's a I don't know, there's a heartbreak in both scenarios, I think,
Hmm.
that we don't expect. And so when you
Right.
add a hard life experience or something traumatic on top of that, or you weren't taught how to cope, I
Right.
wasn't taught very well how to cope. And
No, no.
this was a thing that was going to break me. And it sounds like you were at that point. Can you describe what was your rock bottom? What was your rock bottom when he gave you an ultimatum? It didn't work, so you had to come to it to yourself. Maybe we should wait till the next segment to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Um,
The
I mean,
ultimatum was like 6 years before I got sober.
oh wow. Did you go to rehab at any point in there?
At the end,
Okay. Yeah, when you were finally
you can
ready,
tell.
or
We can tell that that's kind of goes along with my rock bottom. My rock bottom happened after I lost my dad to cirrhosis and my mom
oh
to
wow.
other complications, both in 2017.
Wow. You know
And
what's funny about that is I lost my dad to an opioid addiction, accidental overdose. How crazy is that? And I used for 5 more years, which is
yeah, and
really
my
sad.
mom was
Well,
a pill addict.
when we come back from the break, we're going to talk about rock bottom with Bronwen Scarberry. Stay with us. We'll be back in just a moment after the break. And hopefully, you'll listen to the people that are supporting us on the radio break. And that is Freedom CBD and Wellness in Tuscaloosa, the Mullins Lobby Firm, and Native Black Cultivation. And as I mentioned at the beginning, even though we haven't gotten their clip yet, the Alabama Cannabis Coalition as well, and the National Industrial Hemp Coalition, and every other coalition friend I got out there. Thank you very much. And we'll be back in just a few minutes. And we're going to talk about, obviously, I started talking about the break too soon, so I'm just panicking now. So stay with me. It's real. If it's nothing else, it's real. And I am a human being. And if you knew the kind of week I had just had, you wouldn't blame me. Stay with us. We'll be back in just a few moments with Bronwen Scarberry. Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Jennifer Boozer, right here at Sweet Home CannaBama, every Monday night at 7 p.m. here on FM Talk 106.5 and live streaming from the Sweet Home CannaBama social media pages. We're talking tonight about National Recovery Month. Specifically, we're speaking to Bronwen Scarberry about addiction recovery and cannabis. Bronwen, let's talk about rock bottom. Let's start with you. You said you went to rehab at the end of the 6 years ultimatum period. You were given an ultimatum, 6 years passes, and you finally go to rehab.
He didn't really give me an ultimatum. He just wanted me to get sober. He told me, he's like, you're eventually going to lose me if you don't get sober. You need to do this for you.
That's kind of an
it's
ultimatum.
Unhealthy. I mean, so kind of, and like my best friend took me to a couple AA meetings. Well, one, I went drunk. And I was like, I don't belong here. I'm not like these people. Get me out of here.
Of course. Yes, I'm not an addict. I can control it. Oh, all that stuff.
I'm good. Yeah. So, I mean, it was just, he had my best interest at heart, but he was also an enabler. So.
Yes, I was married to one as well. Yeah. That's okay. It wasn't his fault. He didn't ask to marry somebody who would morph into what I morphed into after our son died. He didn't ask for that, and I don't blame him for getting tired of me. Anyway,
so
we survived the addiction, just not the rest.
Right.
So tell us about rehab.
2017 was a rough year. I touched on the fact my mom passed away in January. I got my hysterectomy in January. My dad passed away in March. I almost lost my job in May as a direct result of my alcoholism and my behaviors. So I knew I had to kind of ride it out to the end of the school year. I knew I needed to do something. I didn't know what that something was. I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. I
understand. Yes. Every cell in your body is ready to just lay down and never get back up.
Probably my rock bottom was my husband and I are still together. I mean, we're still very happily married. Wow. We'll celebrate 19 years this year.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I think the statistics are very bad on that.
Oh yeah, they're very against us.
They're like 85, 90%. I know for couples that lose a child, they're like 85% divorce rate. So add addiction on top of that. It wasn't good. It wasn't. We hurt each other.
Yeah. So we survived that. I mean, bad things happened. I made amends. I did the things. The worst part is my husband and I, our first date was in 1997. Our first date, his son joined us. He was 5 at the time. Mm-hmm. He has been my buddy since. He will be 33 this year.
Wow.
And my rock bottom is when he stopped wanting to be around me. The reason he stopped coming over was me. And it took me a lot of time to realize that, really.
Yeah, and I'm sure if it was mentioned at all, you probably thought, could not possibly be true. These are the things we tell ourselves.
I'm a delight.
Right? I am perfectly pleasant. Who would not want to party with me, right?
Yeah.
Everyone. No one likes you.
Right.
No, you're not pulling it off. You're not cute. It's not fun. No one, you suck the life out of everything. Yeah. And you're broken and you're just so desperately lonely. And it's like, well, nobody, and I did this to myself. I did this to myself. And there's a whole lot of honesty that comes with being able to say, no one made me do this. I can't even blame the fact that my husband was an enabler. I did it. I chose it, and it got a hold of me. I let it into my life, and it took hold, and it was only on me. And that's why people can't be forced or coaxed into it. They have to decide enough is enough.
So on June 15th, 2017, I had yet another day of utter failure in my eyes and others. And I saw my husband coming down the driveway, and I grabbed my insurance card out of my purse, and I went out on our deck, and I got on my knees, and I handed him my insurance card, and I said, "Baby, I need help."
Thank God.
And then, the next morning, he drove me to rehab. He was
That's
on the phone
amazing.
all night finding a rehab that was far enough away that he couldn't come get me quick, but close enough that he could drive to me and didn't have to fly.
Honey, if you don't know your man loves you, there's all
Oh,
the proof you could ever need.
no, I
That's a
know.
man that loves his wife.
Yes.
That's a beautiful thing. Did you have something that I envy you that?
Girl, I am blessed. I
You
am blessed.
are. You are. You are. Ooh, I can't wait to talk to him. Well, show with him. I would love to do a show one day with spouses and family members, and it'll probably be one of the hardest shows I ever did, having to listen to it, because I
Yeah.
would want to invite my own family members to feel that like they could be a part of it. But yeah, I mean, we do damage, but we are also damaged, and so then it's hard because nobody around us wants to help us. You know, they're tired of us. They want us to stop being a problem in their life. And to have someone who would stay up all night and find you a rehab instead of saying to you, like mine did, you need to find a rehab by X date or you got to get out. That's the different thing.
Yeah, it is a different thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and he
Anyway,
drove up.
anyway, it is still all my fault. Not blaming him. It's still my fault. But there's a very different outcome there.
Yeah.
So let's talk about how cannabis has been a part of your sobriety, because while we honor the fact that we've got to be honest with ourselves and these things happen and we're human and we do recover, we want to let's talk about how to help people get out of where we were, the ones that are still stuck there. So I want to talk about that. How has cannabis helped you to get or stay sober?
So I got sober the traditional route in treatment, 100% abstinent from all things. They detoxed me the way I should be detoxed, especially off the death cocktail I was on.
Right.
They
That's what
tried,
killed you.
yes, they tried to preach total abstinence for me, but I knew better. Remember, I
Right.
had used cannabis in the past.
Right.
I knew what it did and did not do. I knew it did not lead to addiction in other ways. It did not lead me to harder drugs. It did not lead me to
Right.
opioids. It did not lead me to uppers,
And it
downers, in
likely, I
betweeners.
mean, yeah, based on what you're telling me about how traumatic your earlier life was, it probably kept you from those things.
Yes,
I mean, don't
I
you
believe
think
that.
kids that are at risk, kids that are hurting, kids that have run away, that are being abused, I mean, I would hope that they would turn to cannabis first
Hmm.
instead of those things, because they can get drugs. Trust me, honey. They
Yeah.
can get drugs as easy as anybody else can, and it's very scary.
Well, part of my growing up as well, there was a lot of physical abuse
Hmm.
towards my mom, and
Hmm.
alcohol was always involved. But if
Yeah.
I could smell that sweet smell in the air, abuse was not happening.
Ah.
And I picked up on that early.
Wow. Wow. That's profound, Bronwen. That's
So
insane. That just blew my
I
mind.
knew it
But
was
you're
good medicine.
right. Oh,
I
I
could
can feel it.
tell.
If you rubbed a crushed up Percocet under my nose right now or an Oxycontin, I bet you I would still recognize the smell. And that's for powder. But I would
Yeah,
recognize that pharmaceutical because I ate them like Skittles, you
right.
know? And by the end of my addiction, I could probably take out a block of grown men per serving because
Yeah.
it just gets to that toxic level
Mhm.
where you're taking enough that it would never normally allow an adult human being to breathe. And
So,
that's the scary part and why it's so dangerous to detox on
yeah,
your own.
and which is why I didn't. So,
Right.
after getting sober, getting my system cleaned out, um, getting to like a homeostasis, I still have
Right.
PTSD. I got diagnosed with fibromyalgia. I got diagnosed with Hashimoto's. I got diagnosed with polyarticular arthritis. I got diagnosed
Right.
with chronic pain. And they were like, here's a referral to pain management. And I said, no, thank you.
Wow. And you see the result of that kind of trauma and that much alcohol on your body. Like it literally was trying to shut you down. And you
Hmm.
came out of it clean, but you still had the aftermath. That's what, like me, I've been, even 10 years later, I just got off coffee and soda and sugar, and I don't even have makeup on right now. And I don't even care if y'all think I'm ugly because it's kicking my tail. But I know it's good for me because, it's funny that we're doing it during recovery month because in a way, it has felt at times similar to that my brain was like, hey, I need this. And we're talking about caffeine and sugar that we all use every day. And I
Hmm.
feel like I'm going through the crackhead stage again, and I feel awful, and I can't eat, and I'm, sweating at random, and I'm like, okay, but it's because I continued after I got rid of the narcotics, continued to treat my body like a garbage can, and got to the point, I guess, where the cannabis wasn't enough to sweep it out anymore.
Right.
And so I'm doing a reset, and you have to, and you're left with the aftermath of what you've done to your body, and then you have to figure
Hmm.
out how to cope with it. And the conventional medicine will tell you, oh, well, you need an antidepressant and anxiety, you need blood pressure medicine, you need sleep pills, you need pain meds, all that. That's
And
not freedom to me.
I said no thank you to all of those and had my medical marijuana card, is what it's called in the state of Ohio, my cannabis card,
Hmm. Hmm.
within the week.
Oh, wow. Was
I
that a very
knew
difficult process for you? Before we go to
no,
the break, was that a very difficult process for you? Because we're
no,
still waiting for the privilege to apply for cards here.
no,
We're
for
in
me
year
it was
3 on
easy.
that.
Yeah, no, I had my
Okay.
diagnosis. I scheduled an appointment online. Those people were online to make money. They took my money. They gave me a card. Easy peasy lemon squeezy.
Nice. Well, hopefully that infrastructure will be that simple here. I know I follow some groups in Mississippi. A shout out to the We Are the 74 group and Hardy Case, you guys out there kicking tail. But I see them, there's constantly questions about how do I do this? How do I renew this? This law has changed. What are the new rules? Like I said, we don't have anything but lawsuits in Alabama, but I follow that group so closely and see what they experience and the things that they have, their growing pains. And so I always like to hope that once it comes here, they'll have learned from everyone else's mistakes and make it simple. I was hoping it would be that way for our medical bill, but apparently
Right.
not. But yeah, just the simple process because people don't, especially for people, you knew cannabis, but a
Mhm.
lot of people are going into this thinking, okay, I don't know anything about cannabis. I've never used cannabis. I don't know where to go, what to do. And there's still no infrastructure in place here. So when we come back from the break, we're going to talk more with Bronwen about cannabis and recovery. Stay with us. Welcome back to the show, everybody. We're talking tonight about addiction and recovery with Bronwen Scarberry. Bronwen, let's pick back up in this last segment and let's talk about how cannabis helped you And in your recovery, you told us how you got out of rehab. They offered you narcotics with pain management. You said no, you got your medical card. Tell us what happened from there and how it helped you.
So from there, I got my medical card. I knew that, that route, the pain management route, was not my route. So I went back to what I knew, which was cannabis. I had a friend who had her medical card. She kind of helped me experiment before I got mine. She gave me the ins and outs real quick. So then I start going to the dispensary, which, your first experience going to one is like, I don't know, Willy Wonka.
It is. It's surreal. I went in Vegas in 2018 and it was completely surreal.
Yeah. So I'm a book person. I was a teacher for many years. I like to investigate and research and figure out what I need. I plugged in kind of what my conditions were. Pain was my main thing. And the two things that kind of popped up that would be beneficial to me were concentrates, specifically rosin is my concentrate of choice, and RSO. Or
very potent.
So RSO is only used for fibro flares, maybe once or twice a year. It has to be bad for me to go to RSO.
It is very strong. I know. I have a friend who has a genetic disorder, and she says a grain of rice will put her down for 2 days.
Yeah, I very, very, very carefully, like once or twice a year, I keep a dart here for those purposes. But sometimes if all of my conditions decide to just have a party and go all at once.
Oh yeah.
That's there.
You have that in the freezer or the refrigerator somewhere available. But what do you use rosin on a daily basis? Explain that for the listeners and the watchers who don't know what rosin means.
Okay, so if you take the whole plant and you freeze it and you extract all the little crystals, and that kind of makes it into old school like hash, and then you press it with heat. So you've got heat extracting the yummy deliciousness out.
Right, and it decarboxylates the THCA into delta 9 THC and all the other acids like CBD A and CBGA. We know that heat makes them all convert. So
yes, thank you.
Raw until they heat press it, and then it becomes a decarboxylated rosin. Correct.
Correct. So at that point, it's a whole plant medicine, and I have found whole plant medicine works best for me. Hence the RSO.
I believe that is probably true for everyone, and that's the way it's meant to be used. And because of arbitrary percentages and laws,
Yeah.
But anyway, so tell us, what have you gotten a lot of kickback from people in modern addiction recovery community? Do you know very many people that have criticized you for using cannabis in your recovery?
Yes. When it came out, when I lost my teaching job, I was very, very, very active in the recovery community. Like went to Founders Day, helped direct the play, sponsored. I mean, big book thumper, and got fired by my sponsor when she found out that I had my medical cannabis card prescribed by a doctor.
Wow. Well, I'm sure. I'm honestly most of the time scared to have that conversation because I think in the recovery community, behavior modification is not very successful at all. It's dismal. And most of those people are hanging on for dear life, white knuckling it by a set of rules and meetings. There are people that have been sober for 20 years and still have to go to meetings. That to me isn't freedom.
No.
And behavior modification, that's why people fall off the wagon and relapse so much, because white knuckling it alone is just too much. It's too hard for the average person. You've still got to cope with the thing that drove you to the drugs. And then you got to get off the drugs and repair all the damage you did.
Exactly.
It's 10 times worse.
Right. So, I mean, is there a place for pieces, parts of that program? Absolutely. Was it put in place by two men who together didn't even have 6 months sobriety? And now it is the end all and be all. I mean, trust me.
And it's the only real thing out there. But again, the success rate is so bad.
It
You
is.
know,
So
it is so
I
bad.
think I think we need to
But
be out
that's
there.
because, well, that's because the withdrawal symptoms and detox period is so physically intense. And
Right.
there's nothing legally non-narcotic available to ease any of that suffering. And you take away the fear of that suffering, and people will get clean left and right, day and night, all the time. That
Mhm.
fear of suffering is what keeps people in this misery. We don't want to be there. No one woke up and went, hey, I want to be a drug addict or an alcoholic and ruin everything. No one
Right.
does that. But we get to that point and we have to be shaken out of it. But cannabis is a tool that takes away, for, in my experience, it takes away a lot of the withdrawal and the detox symptoms, and gives your body actual nutrition it needs, that,
Mhm.
and lights up that system in your body that's meant to be there to clean your body out,
Yeah.
because you've got to get the garbage out, and that's what detox is. It just hurts going coming
Yeah.
out because it shouldn't have gone in.
Yeah, so I was definitely criticized by the community. I'm not part of that community anymore. I have zero desire
Same.
for alcohol or benzos, zero. I know
Right.
cannabis is to thank for that. I know cannabis keeps me stable. I'm not on the only medication I take from a pharmacy is my thyroid medication because I can't do that naturally.
Right.
But cannabis
Right.
is my medicine for depression, anxiety, blood pressure, sleeping, pain. Um,
Yes, the whole gamut. Me too. I
you
don't take
know,
any prescriptions at all. Thank God.
so
And I was on a handful when I started CBD. I was clean, but I was absolutely miserable and on a handful of drugs.
yeah, so I think the recovery community really needs to rethink what
Yes.
sobriety is and maybe perhaps consider harm reduction as part of recovery.
Yes,
It
absolutely.
doesn't
And
have to
and I
be.
think the success rate would skyrocket. I've seen it with people that come through my store. You know, we donated oil to a sober living house for women for 3 years, and it was miraculous. IV, heroin, meth, alcohol, all that stuff. We're getting to the end, and I want to say, find both of our stories in the Courage in Cannabis Volume 2, available on Amazon and at CannaBama. Thank you, Bronwen, for sharing your story in such a public way. Congratulations on your sobriety, and we look forward to sharing this in hopes it will change hearts and minds. What would you like to say good night?
Well, thank you everyone for being here. I hope I gave you something that you can take away. Sobriety is possible if you're out there struggling. I mean, it sucks at first, but God, life is so much better. And if you are struggling, thinking that you're not worth being on this planet today, I'm here to tell you I love you and you are.
Amen.
998 is a good number to call. And you can find me on the socials. My name is Bronwen Scarberry. I'm the token teacher on Instagram. And if I can help you out, I'll help you out.
Thank you so much.
We
Thank
do
you so much
recover.
for being here. Yes, we do recover. Well, if you want to join us next week, we're going to have another show about National Recovery Month. And I'm still shoring up that guest, but I'm hoping we're going to get an addiction specialist who uses cannabis in his practice. I'm having to confirm that, so I can't make any promises yet. But that's what we're shooting for. Join us every Monday night here on FM Talk 106.5 and on the social media pages for Sweet Home CannaBama. And call your senator, whether you live in Alabama or Missouri or Tennessee or California or any other state. If you use cannabis, if you use hemp products, if you grow it, if you make it, if you sell it, please call somebody, get involved. We can't let this all fall apart. There are people who are dying from addiction every day and they need our help. Stay with us every week, Monday night, 7 o'clock. Be here. We're going to talk about this in ways that no one's talking about it, because it matters. And at Sweet Home CannaBama, we're always going to say what needs to be said. Thank you. God bless you and good night.